Hey everyone, just want to stop by real quick before this podcast starts and say you should like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow me on all my social medias at John D. Klauser, literally the same name as the name they subscribe to on this YouTube channel. So enjoy this clip, and I'll see you guys on the other side.
I really hate to be the dude that fucks with us.
You think? I mean, hell.
Yeah.
Welcome to the John Show with your host, John Doogie Klauser.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my God, how are we? Touch the floor. Hey, what's going on? What's up? Hey everyone, we are here on a new episode of the Juan Solo Show with your host, me, Juan D. Klauser. It's kind of weird. This week we have the camera set back a little bit further back than we normally do. And the reasoning is we just have more lighting. I figured if I push the lighting back. Gotta love it, right? You gotta love how we're not even a minute into this podcast and I just switch. Blah, blah, blah. Well, what's up? So, no, the lighting's just a little bit. I have more lights. To tell you the guys, the gosh darn truth. So I'm just like, well, let's push the camera back a little bit more and let's do this podcast. And you might be wondering, hey John, you're back using the handheld microphone. Why is this? Well, I was just kind of bored. It was fun playing with it. I noticed that it is a lot easier using this one because it's a lot. The power source on this is a lot lighter than using this bad boy, and I using this thing while using the Zoom recorder. And I just want to practice more and more with using it by myself. When I'm by myself, this doesn't really matter. If I fuck up on this, all I gotta do is just sadly I have to just redo it again. But versus if I'm with a group of people, have a whole location set up. I don't want to use this device hoping that it's going to be my audio recording device, and it kind of shit the bed or me not being able to use it correctly. So what do you have to do? You gotta practice with it. So that's what I'm doing. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm doing swell. Like I said, I'm doing this podcast. Life is chill, just writing a lot, always in my head, always in a story. It's so much fun. Let me tell you guys, it's so much fun. It is so much fun. Just spilled beer on myself. That's what you do. I don't know. It's fucking hilarious. So I'm getting this podcast done a little bit later than I normally do. I'm doing it on Thursday. Well, the reasoning behind that is because Thursday's no big deal. I do it Wednesday or Thursday of every week, and that's not really the point of the thing. The reasoning behind it, I normally do it later or earlier in the night. But tonight I got a phone call from one of my buddies, and he called me. And it's so funny. It was so funny. I was thinking about this guy because I worked with him a long, long time ago. So I used to work for a company. This is one of the funny things. So if you're ever doing the arts, or you're just trying to be a low life, and it's really sad to say that, but it's the God honest truth, because there's two groups of people. There's the person who is hey, I'm working here because until my band gets signed, and then once my band gets signed, I'm going to get the fuck out of here. The artist. Or it's the guy who rides the bus, rides the subway, and gets you and gets you there, gets you to this fucking job. So what was so interesting, this guy who called me, was that his name is Andy. Andy is an interesting character. Let me tell you about him. I haven't talked to this guy in a couple years. So when I knew him, he was this he was this drifting kind of character, but he didn't have to be a drifter. His family, he came from a pretty wealthy family from the East Coast. I think it was like, I want to say it was some part in Staten Island. Yeah, his family was from Staten Island, and the reason why him and I met was because I was doing my study abroad in New York. So I went to film school, and one of the great things about film school is that like most of the great film schools are in the United States. So I was in Los Angeles going to film school. So I was like, well, why don't I do my study abroad? My semester in New York, going to one of the schools there. So I contacted a bunch of them, and then Columbia was like, hey, yeah, come over. We can do a semester here, and it just counts as part as your credit towards graduating. And so when I was there, I needed a job because I'm going to be there for a semester. And like, I'm just always been somebody who's just like, I was super fucking lazy growing up because my parents allowed me to be in a weird way, in the sense of like, I didn't have to get a job because they're like, your job is to go to school, not get into much trouble, get decent grades, and play sports, and just do that thing. Just be a kid. It was so crazy. It was so fun. But then I always knew that I'm like, well, this is going to be so much. This is going to only last for so long. Probably, John, till like most likely you graduate high school, and then like you're going to go to college, and you're going to have to start getting a job and all this shit. So, and then of course, senior year of college, you are basically, you're doing your warm up your warm up layups to the real world, entering into the world of doing your own job. So when I was over there, I got a telemarketing job, and it was pretty easy, wasn't that crazy? And it in the sense of like, it's not hard to sell printers, and it's not hard to sell. Basically, you weren't selling. I was selling printers, but my job was to sell appointments, and then our specialist would go into the place and then do the final thing. So my job was basically just get appointments. That's what it is. And so it was like super easy. So I'd call up. I'm like, Hey, how are you? What's up? My name's John. I work with the Smith Company, and we realized that you have been doing a lease with this computer company or this printer company, and like we were saying, like, hey, we work with a Canon. Canon, you're familiar with them, and we do work with Canon printers. And the great thing about this is that we can come in. We have a specialist this is in your area. I would like to set up an appointment, and he will come in. What's so cool about this is like, I know you're probably like, I don't want to be sold this. I know I'm already in a contract. Well, great about that is if you are in a contract, we can fucking buy you out. Of course, you don't say fuck, but you get what I'm saying is we can buy you out, which we barely bought you out. We gave you a voucher that was $500 at most. It was kind of a ripoff, to let you know, just to be fucking honest with you. And anyway, so, I would love to set an appointment with you, and blah, blah, blah. So my whole goal is just appointment. So I started doing this. So you go in there first 3 days, you're getting paid. It's basically training. They sit you in rooms, all that shit. Blah, 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 blah. That gets done. So the training's super easy. You listen to a couple of like recordings of like what was like a good sale, was a good way of setting appointments, and you just kind of make your own thing. They give you a script. They kind of tell you, like, think of your own script. And they're like, a lot of you guys are artists. A lot of you guys are doing things, so put your own spin on it. So I was basically what I just did was what I did. And it was, not that hard of a fucking job. So I was thinking, like, I'd go in and I would get, like, maybe 5-6 appointments a day. I was like, okay, I'll get that. Dude, I was pulling in 50, 60, dude. I was just calling because they just had lists of numbers, and you just basically just do. The hardest part was just looking at the number, and I would put one finger on it, and I would look, okay, 976 and I'd call. I'm like, hey, what's up? My name's John. All right, bye. And I just do. He did that for 8 hours. It was not fucking hard. It was like, 7.5, 8 hours, and you do that for 3 days in a row, and that's what you get. And you paid $15 an hour. Super easy, but everyone, it's just one of these jobs you do, and I worked there long enough, and then what was so crazy is I got after I graduated college, I had to go back to New York for a little bit because I had got an internship from working, doing my study abroad at Columbia. I met a professor. Professor was like, "Hey, you know what? I like what you do. You kind of rough around the edges." Well, it's always been the greatest description of me. It's like, yeah, you're slightly rough around the edges, Juan, but hey, you work hard. And so when I was doing stuff, I was doing internship, but like when you do internships, you don't get paid that much. So I was like still going over there, working at this. I called him back. I'm like, "Hey, would you mind?" And it's a telemarketing job. It's so easy. It's like the easiest jobs to get. And well, I did decent at this job enough where that I got part of the like Bahama trip. And so it was you had to get enough appointments where it was like a ridiculous amount. It was like up in the thousands of appointments you had to get. And if you got it, then your name got put into a raffle. And they picked like 4 people, and from those 4 people got to go to the Bahamas. Or this like 3-day, 2-day cruise thing to the Bahamas. And so I was one of the people that won it. I got my name drawn. And they called me into the office. I was thinking I was getting fired, to tell you the God honest truth, because I started smoking pot and out in the back, where I was like, okay, I don't see any cameras, and I had this like little tiny like a little 1-hitter, and I was just like popping it real quick. I'd take a little couple hits, and I'd go back in. I'd just like sit back down. I just called the shit out of these people, because all you had to do is just make a fucking appointment. It's not that hard of a job. And so I got called in the office, and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Klauser." I'm like, "Hey." Like, well, the reason why we called you in the office today was because your name, because you're the people who were the top sellers in our competition, our little contest, and your name got drawn, and you won it. And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And they're like, "Yeah, so you get this trip, like they told me the whole thing. It was like 2 days, 3 nights, or 3 nights, 4 days. I think it was something like that. It was how it worked was, yeah, because you're like 2 days in Bahamas. The 1 day when like Miami, the last day was in Miami, and then Miami. Then from there, you had to get your own flight back to wherever, because at that point, my internship would have been done, or like the little gig thing I had, it would have been done. So I would have just flown back to LA at that point. Anyway, so I was like, "Yeah, I'm good. I don't want that. I don't want any of that." And they're like, "You don't want to go to the Bahamas?" I'm like, "Not really. I mean, I would love to go to the Bahamas." I told them, but I was like, if I'm going to go to the Bahamas, I'll just go with my own money that I got from this job. There's absolutely no reason for me to, and please don't take any offense to this, but there's absolutely no reason for me to be hanging around with any of these people that I cold call with. And I don't want to hang out with them here at this job, let alone go to an island and hang out with them there. And like, do you really wouldn't want to go on this vacation? And they're just so flabbergasted by like why I'm like turning down this Bahama trip. And I'm like, have you seen Andy? Do you see Andy? Dude, he eats hard-boiled eggs all the time. They make everything smell all the time. And then how about Julie? Julie can barely handle working here, and like it's like Nick Foles. Like, it was like such a shocking thing, like how he won a Super Bowl. It's almost like shocking how she even won part of this. She was one of the winners of the contest. Like, you think she's gonna be able to hike a mountain? Like, I don't want to be around these people. I just don't want to interact with them. It's no offense to anybody. I just don't. I just rather not. And so, yeah, I was just like, yeah, but like, that's the guy. Like, Andrew's like, he called me because he still works there every once in a while. And he's like, "Yeah, man, the manager that, Nicholas, like, he's still part of the company. He's moved up. He's like the head person there. He was there for like, remember like Steven, that big musclehead Steven guy?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, he moved on. He works someplace in Manhattan now." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And so, but yeah, he's like, "Yeah, like they were just talking about the other day, like how like the John guy, remember that John guy, how he never he never wanted to go to that Bahamas trip. So weird, because like they still do the contest every year, and like I guess he brings it up, that manager guy. So I don't know why I even brought it, but he called me and he was talking to me because I haven't talked to him in a like, fucking year and a half, and he's like, yeah, it's just funny. Like it's like 10 years later, he's still like talking about it. It's like that happened like 10 years ago. I'm like, yeah, like, and I'm like, the funny thing is like that you're both still there every once in a while. He's like, well, I just only there because I guess he uses it like any of the sales that any appointments that he makes, because you get paid by the hour. That money on the weekend, just a weekend job. Like, he works like 2 weekends out of 4 every month. And he's like, yeah, that just pays my insurance that pays for my insurance. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, awesome. He's like, yeah, I got another job. And he's like, yeah, I work for this. It's one of those when they have people come in and they do the testing for like 10 days. He's one of those people who does like the readings on like the charts and stuff. He's like, oh, you're Jacob, how are you doing today? And he asks him like series of questions in the morning. He's just like an assistant, like a nursing assistant, but he's not, which I don't think he has a degree in nursing or anything, or even like an associate's in nursing. So I don't even know how, but I'm like, good for you, buddy. I'm like, all of it, but it's just hilarious thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, dude, they were just so weirded out by that. Like, why, John, why would you not want this? Why would you not want this? I'm like, I just don't want it. I just don't want it. I don't want to be around people. So, what else? What else do I have to talk about this week? I don't think there's anything weird that I. Oh. So I don't know why. I don't know what brought it up, but like I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about like the Foo Fighters, and then like one of the people that was on it, his neighbor was one of the guys who lived in the area, that the cul-de-sac area, was the drummer for the Foo Fighters, and he passed away because he was like 50. Apparently he died from a heroin overdose. I didn't know that, and because I totally forgot that he passed away. I'm like, oh yeah, because he kind of looked. There's a music video where he kind of looks like Brad Pitt a little bit. I'm like, that looks kind of like Brad Pitt, but clearly he doesn't at all. He doesn't look anything. But like when you see like quick clips and like long hair, when Brad Pitt had long hair and that beard, I'm like, oh, that looks kind of like a weird Brad Pitt. He has like the same hair and structure slightly, but I don't know. That's like the only thing. What's his name? Taylor Hawkins. Yeah. Shit. It sucks. It's a weird thing to. I mean, it's not weird. I mean, yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's such a interesting thing to do. It's one of those crazy fun drugs. It's like you don't like have fun with those. They quickly like go bad. And the thing is but think about like how it was probably when he's like, on tour and he's like about to go on stage. He does like a bunch of heroin. Because, this wasn't the first time. So he probably played on it. And think about the fun. That's what I think about. Was the other thing. Think about like PCP, and you just take away all the cops and like the car chasing, having the cops chase you in a car, and then like the crazy, amount of like prison time you're probably gonna do if you get caught doing it over and over again. But like take all that away and just think about like all that rage, all that fun that's going inside. It's probably a lot of fun. Now I'm not saying you should do it or I'm gonna do it. I'm just saying like, oh, you're like kind of like, if you just think about it, like the euphoria is probably insane, but it's like nope. Not even an ounce of me is like, yeah, I should try this. Like, I don't even know how you can get around it. That's the funny thing. It's like, I just don't understand, like, what depths of a swamp do you have to go that you're like, what the fuck? Like, they just bypass the beer. They bypass the weed. They even, like, bypass a little bit of, like, cocaine. And they're just like, PCP, baby. Let's do this. And you're just like, yeah, we're going to fucking smoke this shit. And then next thing you know, you're hulking out, and these cops are holding you down, and they're tasering the shit out of you, but ain't doing a goddamn thing. But you're feeling like a goddamn unicorn flying, like just floating on a cloud, just feeling like a unicorn. And like every time like it zaps you, that zzz thing, like your unicorn horn just goes bigger, and it gets bigger and bigger. But you're just out of your fucking head. But you're just getting your arms broken. You're like your jaws, like teeth are being knocked out of your mouth. It's just an insane thing. But you're just having fun. And then your mugshot is crazy as fuck. It is, but it's just fucking insane. Dude, don't do it. Don't do drugs. It's a crazy thing. Don't do anything. I'm not saying I've done any of that. Oh, I overheard a conversation today, which was really weird. I overheard this guy ask a girl, like, so do you want to, like, maybe go and hang out sometime and have, like, a room temperature margarita? And I'm just like, what the fuck? And that sat with me. That was about, like 10 a.m. I heard that today. And it's, what is it? 2:14 a.m. on a Thursday. And I'm just like, what the living shit? Like, what does he mean by that? Like, why would anyone want to have a room temperature margarita? Just the thought, just like, woof. Like, think about just the sugar and the tequila and like the salt. The salt would just take it overboard to the point you can't. There's no way you can take a sip of that and like not gag. You just be oh. Like I had to have misheard it. I had to have misheard what he said. He had to have said something else, but it came out pretty straight. Like, would you want to have a room temperature margarita? Would you want to hang out and have a room temperature margarita? It's probably going to be the title of this podcast, Room Temperature Margarita. Room Temperature Margaritas. Yeah. It's woof. How much time I got? 7 more minutes. Okay. Let's see here. Oh. This is fucking crazy. So like funerals, like this I have to go to a funeral, like a friend of a friend, someone I know when I was young. They passed away, and so I'm going with my friend for just moral support. I guess I guess that's what you'd call it. And what I absolutely love funerals because they're the best. Like I told you, I'm not a big people person. I have groups, my group of people I like. And then besides that, I'm like, it's very rough. I'm like, I'm 33. I'm like, I don't need to know a lot of people anymore. I'm good. I'm kind of good. I'm good. I'm good. And so the best thing though about funerals, especially like people going to funerals of people you haven't seen in a long time, is that it's going to be the easiest thing in the world because people don't do a lot of small talk at a funeral. You don't do small talk. You don't like. You're not like, hey, I'll catch up. I'll call you later this week, and you don't. And then like. No, because it's awkward. That's weird as shit. You're a psycho if you do that. You're a psycho. You're just in and out. You just like look. You're like, oh, this sucks. And like you get to think about your mortality of your own life. And then you go eat some dry brisket and you go home. It's like, and then like you hit quotas. You hit quotas on seeing people. And then you can like next time you see them at that family reunion or you see them at like that stupid ass fireworks celebration that your small town does every year. And they're like, oh, hey, I haven't seen you since that funeral. And you're like, yeah, like I haven't seen you since that funeral. Like, yeah, so how you been? And you're like, yeah. And so it's just like, it bypasses a lot. It's like, yeah, like, yeah, like, have you seen Jerry since the funeral? Like, he took it pretty bad. And then they're like, oh no, really? I'm like, yeah. It's just, and like you just like totally do that, and then next thing you know, I'm like, well, it's good seeing you. Well, bye. And then you just walk away, and you don't even have to talk about anything about you at all. And it's the greatest thing in the world. They're like, so you do, you do this and you do that. Like there's none of that. It's just talking about someone else, and then they're just like, oh my God, really? And you're like, yeah, and they just buy, and you just move the fuck on. And it's the greatest in the world. I recommend this, guys. Go to the funerals. So then you don't have to go to other events and see family, old friends that you don't really want to talk to anyway, because you never really talked to them to begin with. It's the truth. Man, I'm just like, 4 more minutes. Like, I'm just like, what I don't like doing is I don't like talking on the phone and then having to do a podcast, because it eats up all my energy, because it takes a lot out of me to talk. It takes a lot of, I think it talks, no matter how many times you do this, it takes a lot out of anybody to talk for 30 minutes straight, 29 minutes and whatever seconds straight about stuff, life, whatever. And like, that's what it is. It's just like, you kind of take bits and pieces. I guess this is life, and I talk about it. I don't know. I'm just like, this is just fun to do, because I get to set up lights and push play on a camera and do that. It's all practice for that. It's not really an audio stuff. I get to practice with audio equipment. But besides that, it's like whatever. I don't give a Frenchman's fuck if people listen to this. I don't care. I really do not. 'Cause it's just, why would you want to listen to ramblings of a fucking filmmaker talking to a camera and talking to a microphone, looking into a camera, talking to a microphone? It's insane. And why in the fuck did I write this? Is pooping just your lower body's way of throwing up? Like, that's kind of Actually, let's think about this. Is pooping just your lower body's way of throwing up? I think it is. Not bad. Aaron would be proud of me on that one, I think. Probably not. He'd be like, that's the dumbest thing. Because sometimes I'll write those things down like that, and I'll hey, Aaron, right before we push record on our podcast, I'm like, is this funny? He's like, that's dumb as hell. And I'm like, all right, thank you. And I'm like, all right. I just move on. It's a good time. I don't know. Yeah. What the hell? Oh, I've had gay friends. I've had gay guys, straight guys say getting a finger up their butt while getting a BJ is awesome. Yeah. Oh, what? Okay. This was supposed to be like a joke having to deal with not liking. I don't know how much more time do I have. I got 2 minutes. I got 2 minutes. I guess I'll save that one for another one. So we're slowly going into the sin of this podcast. This podcast was really slow and mellow tonight. It was, yeah. This is what happens when I talk on the phone and then have to do a podcast. It's the worst. This is what happens. I'm really mellow and I'm really low energy, I feel. And I'm like, this is not well delivered. But yeah, so I got like a minute and a half left of this podcast. If you like this, like, comment, and subscribe. I don't know why you would. Yeah, sucks. Aaron left. I'm gonna miss him. He's gone again. He's doing comedy though, so I love him to death for doing it. So I can't even be mad. Why would I ever be mad? I am so happy. I'm always happy. If you have friends and if that are also artists and they do shit like that, and when they move and they do stuff or they're getting successful and you're not being successful, it doesn't matter. It's more fun to celebrate. Is it more fun to celebrate than be mad or be jealous? Am I right or wrong? I'm right. You know I'm right. Because it's more fun. Because it's joyful. It should be awesome. It's a good thing. Like, fuck yeah. At least someone's getting something. At least someone's getting some recognition. But yeah. Go on the world. Be happy. Be safe. Wash your hands because monkeypox is a thing. Just saying. Don't want to be too dreary before the podcast ends, but it's the goddamn truth. It is a thing. Be careful with sex with people. I don't know. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys on the next episode. Wash your hands. Do some deadlifts. Say something nice to someone. All right. Bye.